We call it keeping the peace. We say it's not the right time, and we tell ourselves, maybe it'll just fade. But here's the truth. Silence isn't always calm. Sometimes silence is just avoidance dressed as maturity. And what we avoid doesn't really disappear. It builds quietly, internally, until the silence becomes heavier than the conflict ever could have been. Sawadee Krap and welcome to another episode here for the Funk Report, Mindful Media and Communication, answering the question, why do we avoid when we communicate? Why avoidance and what's behind it? And as humans, we don't necessarily avoid hard conversations because we don't care, right? We avoid them because they carry weight. And we're afraid we'll drop it wrong. So let's look into the main big reasons we keep our mouth shut even when something needs to be said, okay? Reason number one, protection, the obvious one. We don't want to hurt someone else or get hurt ourselves. We always imagine the worst case scenario, right? They'll get angry, they'll shut down, they'll leave. So we protect them, or we protect ourselves. And in the process of protection, we suppress the very thing that's trying to surface. Second reason, performance. This is about likability, right? We've learned, especially in certain roles, genders, professional spaces, that being low maintenance is a virtue. So we become the agreeable one, right? The smooth one, the one who never disrupts the flow. So we become kind of what I want to call performance peacekeepers. And ironically, the relationship starts to feel more stable and less real if you're always the performance peacekeeper. Number three, persuasion. Sometimes we avoid because relationships function better when the truth stays hidden. Your friend always makes those subtle jabs. Your boss never credits your work. Your partner hasn't really listened in months, right? You could say something, but then what happens to the structure that you've both come to depend on? So you preserve it, even if that means shrinking yourself inside it. Number four, power. Your silence can be passive, but also pretty strategic. There are times we withhold, delay, disengage as a way to maintain control. And that's not always malicious, right? It's not like I'm a bad person and I want to do that. But it is always manipulative. We know what we're doing when we're doing it. So when the silence becomes a way to dodge responsibility, create ambiguity, or just punish someone quietly, it becomes a different kind of harm, actually. So now the question is, why are we doing all that? And how can we do it better, right? So if you look at communication theory in this regard, I'm going to try to ground all the things I said right now in research. There are a few different theories that can be applied pretty directly, actually, to what we just discussed. And one theory is called the relation dialectics theory. Let me explain, okay? Because it's a new theory we haven't had yet on the podcast. So this theory says that relationships constantly balance competing needs, okay? So openness, for example, versus closeness. Connection versus autonomy. So avoiding hard conversations usually comes from feeling that openness will destroy disconnection. Like if I'm too open, if I show all my feelings, all my insecurities, that other person might leave. So often we choose closeness, right? But closeness slowly erodes the connection anyways. So of course, openness is much better. It's just hard for humans to accept that. And almost hand in hand with that, there's another theory that we call expectancy violation theory. Expectancy violation theory. Okay, also a new theory on the podcast. So people react not just to what is said, but how much it breaks this unspoken kind of script that you have in whatever relationship that might be, personal, professional, anything. And you fear that bringing something up will feel like violation, because it will surprise them. It will disappoint the other party. They won't be ready for it. That's what you think. But here's the nuance. Not all violations in this regard are bad. Okay, not all expectancy violations are bad. Yeah, some of those violations shake people out of autopilot and into maybe honesty. Yeah, while silence keeps the boat steady, but sometimes, gotta rock the boat. Sometimes the boat needs to be moved so that it continues floating down that river. And if you're looking in what happens if you keep avoiding, if you're not rocking the boat, right? The cost of avoidance. Because avoidance feels kind of safe, right? Because nothing happens. But here's what avoidance actually does, okay, in communication. It builds resentment in the name of protection, but it still builds resentment. It dilutes boundaries in the name of harmony. We're just trying to be harmonious, but it still dilutes boundaries. And it distorts identity in the name of adaptability. So I'm just adapting to everything, but it distorts identity. So it builds resentment, it dilutes boundaries, and it distorts identity. So why do we still keep doing it? Because if you keep doing all those things, right? What happens to you? You become a curated version of yourself. Yeah, you start rehearsing what you wish you could say instead of saying it. And over time, you forget what you really think because you've trained yourself to believe your discomfort isn't valid, right? Now, but to be fair now, now I'm making it sound like silence is always terrible and you always have to yell out everything that you're thinking and feeling. No, that's also not the case, right? Silence isn't always bad. It's important to understand. Silence can be reflective, right? You're reflecting on what you've done, what you think, and so on. It can be regulating. You don't have to always throw your stuff at other people without thinking about it. It can be thoughtful. It can give you time to think, to make connections. But you gotta ask yourself, am I quiet because I'm grounded or because I'm afraid? Is this now stillness, so I'm thinking, or is it avoidance? Is this peace, or is it just a temporary absence of conflict? And the thing is, we're not actively choosing to avoid, of course. It just moves from stillness to avoidance, maybe even, without us realizing it. And that's why we have to understand when this happens so that we can intervene. Yeah, if silence becomes like a chronic thing, like reflexive, self-erasing, then it's no longer thoughtful. Then it's more of a form of self-neglect or even neglect of your partner, may it be personal or professional. Okay? And again, we're not doing this on purpose. Most people, I would assume, aren't doing this on purpose, not because we're mean or planning that. It just happens. But then you have to be aware that, oh my God, this is happening right now. I have to do something about it. So then the question is, how do we start saying the thing, right? So the practical part of today's podcast, if you will, like how do we actually say the thing? So you don't need a script, obviously, right? You shouldn't have a script ready for any interaction you have in your life. But maybe there are a few cues that can help you to move from being stuck in your head to being more honest about how you feel. And maybe one thing you could do is you could try to name your discomfort instead of your enemy. Yeah, for example, you could be saying like, I've been sitting with something that's hard to say, but I think I gotta try. You know, if you say it in a way like this kind of like disarms and it opens the space to discussion. It's not like you did this. It's like, oh, I've been sitting with this. I've been thinking about it. It's kind of a hard topic, but I think I really want to talk about it. You know, it's an open space for discussion, which is nice. Secondly, I think one of the things that I find to be very important is trying to invite conversation, not ambush someone. And you could say, do you have a moment for something that's been on my mind for a while, for example? So it gives the other person like time for getting emotionally ready. Emotional readiness is what we call it. And that changes a lot. If you just ambush someone like, hey, listen to me, this, then the other person's like, whoa, where's this coming from now? What is happening, right? So that's a good way to give the other person space as well and not ambush them, okay? If someone's ambushed, they will be defensive right away, which is understandable, of course. Just a small thing that seems to be quite helpful in different papers and like theoretical approaches is using the word and instead of but. Yeah, I appreciate our work together, and I've been holding something in for a little bit that I wanted to share with you. Yeah, but negates, like our work together, I appreciate, but I have to say something, and negates and includes. So if you want to talk to your colleague about something, use and don't but, okay? One more time. I appreciate our work together, but I wanted to say something, makes it feel like, okay, yeah, I don't really appreciate your work. But hey, I appreciate our work together, and I've been thinking about something I want to share with you. Much more inclusive, right? So include rather than negate, okay? The last thing I wanted to mention here in this case is you stay curious. It's not a TED Talk. It's not a monologue. So if you're being honest, leave room for response. Don't perform. And that's very difficult to do. And again, that's the theme of the whole episode today, right? We're like, you're not doing it on purpose. Like the performance, it sounds so negative, but when we're performing in communication, very often we're not doing it on purpose. We just feel like we have to say more. The more I say, the more I explain, the more the other person's going to understand me. But very often that then just makes it look like even more of a performance, even more of like you're trying to throw so many things at me just to make me shut up, which is the exact opposite of what we want, right? If you want to stay curious, you want to listen and understand. We listen and we don't judge. You want to listen and understand, not just give you a TEDx talk, walk off stage, and then never to be heard of, never to be seen again. So can I share this? Can we figure this out together? It's a much better approach than sit down and listen to me. I got something to say. Okay. So I hope that can help a little bit in regards to communication in personal life as well as in professional life. I think that applies to both lives, so to speak. The last thing I wanted to add is that, peace without trust isn't really peace. So silence can be comfortable, and that's a great thing. If you're at a space where you're comfortable in silence with someone, professionally, personally, that's great. But over time, silence can also become heavy. And it's for us to understand when that's the case. Sometimes you think you're avoiding conflict, but you're also avoiding the truth. to somebody is bothered about something. So sometimes the real disconnection isn't in what was said, it's in what was never allowed to actually surface. And if something's not allowed to surface, you know that it's still always there. It's like always cooking beneath the surface, but it's never allowed to pop out. So if there's something you've been holding back, maybe this week you try. This week is the week that you try something new. Yeah? Not perfectly, not dramatically, just honestly. Because now I feel like I'm doing a TEDx talk, but because, even a messy truth is lighter than rehearsed silence. Follow this podcast for less silence. A bit of a heavier topic this week, but it's also communication, right? So I hope that does help a little bit in regards to how to communicate in a personal and professional levels. Let me know how it goes. Let me know if you have any other topics you would want to have discussed on the podcast. You know it, at funkitpod on social media, funkitpod@gmail.com. Like, share, subscribe is always very much appreciated. If you're leaving comments on Spotify or wherever you listen to this podcast, that would also be appreciated, because that helps that annoying algorithm to pop up in more spaces. Until then, go out there, communicate. We'll talk soon. Stay safe. Take care. Talk next time.